Good morning, everybody. As we go to the learn the chitas of the day, today we're holding Wednesday, the fourth reading in the portion of the A, chapter 14, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 14, verse number 1. Banim atem lashem alekechem. You are the sons, the children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, you should not cut yourself. Nor should you make a bald spot between your eyes, lemes, to the dead. Now she says, do not make a cut or a gash in your flesh in mourning for a dead person. That was a custom. Even until today, you have people that do that, and they hurt themselves in the aspect of their mourning. So you're not allowed to do that. Jews not allowed to do that. As the Amorites did, because you are the children of God, and you must keep yourself befittingly handsome. You cannot hurt yourself, not with cutting your flesh or balding your heads. Beinei near the forehead. Elsewhere it says you must not make a bald spot on your head at all, indicating that the entire head is the same law as between the eyes. Because this is written a couple of times in the Torah. It's written by a regular person. This is by a regular Jew, and it's written by a Kohen. Ki am Kodesh Atol Hashem Elekecha. You are the people of God. U'b'chol Baruch Hashem, and the Eibush has chosen you. Lias Leilam Segula, to be to Him as a chosen nation. Mikola Amim, from all the nations of the world, Ashal Pnei Adamim. Now she says, what do you mean, Ki am Kodesh? Referring to your inherently sanctity. Inherited from your forefathers. This is the essence of every person, that he's holy. And beyond this, God has chosen you. So first of all, you have a chelik elakam imal mamish. You have a part of God. You're chosen. And number two is David has chosen this. Do not eat any abomination. Now she says this refers to all the deemed abominable by virtue of being produced by the act of forbidden to you, even if it's not inherently forbidden. For example, if one slits the ear of a firstborn animal with intention to slaughter it out of the temple, this is something deemed abominable, even though to the world, what's so terrible, what's the end of the world? But to a yid, this is an abomination, this is a te'eva. As inflicting a blemish on a consecrated animal is forbidden to you. As it states, you must not have any blemishes on an animal. Although usually blemishes, firstborn animals may be eaten, the Torah teaches us here that one may not slaughter the animal and eat its meat through inflicting that blemish. Similarly, if one cooked meat with milk, this food is something that is deemed a te'eva, abomination. As cooking such a mixture is forbidden to you, even though to a non-Jew it's not forbidden, but to you it is forbidden if you're not allowed to do it. You're not allowed to say, I'm going to cook milk and meat for a non-Jew. You're not allowed to do it. Because it's an abomination to you. That's the point. And why is it abomination? I don't know. That's what the Eibush says. That's what God said, milk and meat. The cooking milk and meat is a chukkah. So scripture here prohibits the one who cooked it to eat it, in addition to the usual prohibition against mixing this mixture applicable to all. And these are the following land animals you may eat: sher, an ox, a sheep, kvasim, lambs, seizim, and goats. Ayel, a deer, a tzvi, and a gazelle, a chayachmer, and a fallow deer. Ba'aku, and an ibex, and a vidishan, an adix, and a bato, a bison, a zemer, and wild sheep. What does the Torah teach us over here? Because we have the law we know already the law of a split hoofs and choose its cud. Since the verse begins with these are the animals, behema, and then goes and enumerates the types of wild animal, chaya. There's a difference between a domesticated animal and a wild animal. Behema is a domesticated animal, a cow or sheep. A chaya is a wild animal, deer, wild sheep. We learned that the category of wild beast, chaya, is included in the category of behema. The Torah wants to tell us that we shouldn't always make a differentiation b'chayim. Whenever I say behem, I mean all behemoths and chayis. We usually refer to domesticated animals. We learn also that unclean, domesticated, and wild animals are more numerous than clean ones, since the less numerous are always enumerated. Therefore, clean animals are enumerated here. Actually, by birds, it's the other way around. Because by birds, it enumerates the non-kosher birds. Over here, it enumerates the kosher animals. So we know that the Gemara says that there's so many kosher birds that we don't even know that they're kosher. We only eat certain birds, but there are many, many, many. Most birds are kosher. This refers to Targum Unkel as Ya'ala. Old French is a mountain goat. With Toho Unkelis renders this as Turbala, which is equivalent to Tor Yar, which is an ox of the forest. Ba'ala means a forest, an ox of the forest, a wild ox. And any other land animal that splits its hoof. Now the Torah says, gives you the sign. Fletzes Bashishar said it could be many other animals. Shtei parses, alligator, but most animals are not. Kosher, shtei alligator, but behema, oisa, techela, only those that chooses cud. I mean, that has total split hoofs. Marfes is split, as Unkelis translated. Parsa is sole of the foot. That means that he has two soles. He has 2 feet, two different nails. The Sheisah completely said it means divided into 2 nails. For some feet are split, but not divided into 2 nails. They're connected at the end. And that's still a non-kosher animal. It has to be 2 feet, the 4 feet that are split totally, the hooves are totally split. Ba behema, inside the animal. Ba behema, what means in the animal? This implies you may eat an entity found in an animal. It means sometimes you can shecht a cow and inside it has a baby. Our sages derive from here that the fetus becomes permitted to eat through the slaughter of the mother. So, halacha, really, when you shecht the mother, the child is automatically shechted like. You don't have to do a shechita on the child, even though we don't do this. But if we don't have such a situation, we shecht the child, we shecht the fetus. But if it would happen, then al pi halacha ba behema, the shechting of the mother, because the fetus is considered part of the mother before its birth. This, but here you're not allowed to eat. For those that regurgitate their cud or split their feet. And these are the ones, and he showed him. It's a gomel, the camel. Vesar neves, and the hare. Vesar shofan, and the hyrex. These animals do chew their cud. But they don't have split hooves. You can't just say, oh, but they chew their cuds. Now she says, the cloven one, this is a creature possessing 2 backs and 2 spinal cords. A rabbi said, why are these listed forbidden species repeated here? We already know that already. We learned it in the book of Vayikra already. The animals here are repeated for the sake of the cloven ones, and the birds for the sake of the ra vulture, which are not mentioned in the book of Leviticus. So we repeat it over here because there are certain things that are not mentioned in the Vayikra that are going to be mentioned here. Sachazer, the pig, kimafris parsu, the pig has split hooves. Well, I get it, but it doesn't chew its cud. Tamihu lachem, it's impure to you. You're not to eat from its flesh. The dead carcass is tummy. Now she says our rabbis explain that this prohibition applies during the pilgrimage festivals, as one who's obligated to be in a state of ritual purity when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash for Sukkot Be'ezrat Hashem. I might think that this prohibition applies throughout the year. Therefore, Torah says, say to the priest, the sons of Aaron, no one may ritually defile themselves on account of a corpse of that animal. If regarding ritual defilement by a corpse, a corpse of a dead person, if if regarding ritual defilement of a corpse of a dead person, which is more stringent than a dead animal, only priests are forbidden, not Jews, all the more regarding the ritual defilement of a carcass. Surely the dead animal is more lenient. So over here we're talking about that when the lasa and lacy go, you're not allowed to touch dead animals only when you're going to the Beis Hamikdash. During the rest of the year, a Jew that was not going to the Beis Hamikdash, or today, for example, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, so there's no problem of touching a dead Chas Shalom. Somebody's dog dies, he doesn't have a problem touching the dead body of a dog, even though he becomes tamei by it. But we don't have an issue going to the Beis Hamikdash. So a kohen tied to the Beis Hamikdash wouldn't be allowed to touch a dead non-kosher animal. But a regular Jew, even tied to the Beis Hamikdash, you can touch a dead animal. These are the things you eat in the water. Any fish that has fins and scales, you'll not eat. And all those that don't have fins and scales, it's defiled to you. Kol tzipor tahira, verse 11. You may eat every bird that is pure. Techeli, you'll not eat. Rashi says, what means kol includes even a bird used for the purification of Mitzvah and later released, right? Because we know by Mitzvah there was two birds. One bird that he let go, he let it fly away, and one bird that he brought in the Beis Hamikdash. So the one that he flied away, it doesn't become kodesh. It flies away, but if somebody catches it, they can eat it. So here you have the just like you had the kosher animals, which is mentioned. Over here you have the non-kosher birds, which is mentioned. Manesher, the griffin vulture, Vesaperes, and the bearded vulture, Vesaznia, and the osprey. Now she says this adds the forbidden the slaughter of birds used in that procedure. And the various and the various species of vultures. Now she says the ra and the aya and the daya, these are different kinds of vultures, are one. So the Gemara is the machlekes, but they're one and the same bird. Why is it called the ra? Because it has exceedingly great eyesight. Why does the scripture prohibit the use of all these names? In using all these names, in order to not allow a contentious person, the opportunity to argue that it is permitted. That is, if to someone pronouncing the forbidden to calling it a ra'ah, and someone wishing to permit it, proplying that it's called a daya or a ayah, so people can argue, oh, this is not the right name. A vulture is a vulture, and therefore the Torah tells us all these names, even though we're talking about the same vulture, because people later can say, oh, it's not the same name. We're going to argue about a name. And therefore the Torah wants to make it understood that whether the name is Ra, Daya, Aya, it's still a vulture. And scripture lists the spirits of foul species of fowls individually in order to teach us that there's more spiritually undefiled species of fowl than spiritually defiled ones. And therefore, it's lists the minority. So that's an interesting thing that it is the minority. The minority is the non-kosher birds. We don't know, even though a lot of the birds flying out there are kosher. And all types, every type of species of a crow. Vesbasayana and ostrich. Vesatemchaimis and a cuckoo. Vesashachaf and a gull. Vesanate and a sparrow hawk. Liminehu. To its kind. Vesakois and a screech owl. Vesayanshuf and a barn owl. Vesanteshemis and a bat. Now she says, that's the way it's kolva shuritz, the bat in Old French. And the pelican, the magpie, and the cormorant. Shalach is called a cormorant, which draws fish from the sea. V'achasida, and the stork. Va'anofa liminoya, and the various species of heron. Va'duchvis, and the hoop. Va'tolef, and the tolef. Now there's a hoop. Duchvis, a hoop, is a wild hen, known as a hupi in Old French, who combs appears doubled over. Chol sheretz oif tameyu lachem, and every crawling creature that flies, rendered is tummy to impure to you. Lo yacheli, you're not allowed to eat it. These are the low creatures that move along the earth, flying creatures such as flies, hornets, and forbidden species of grasshoppers are all called sheretz. Even a bee is called a sheretz. Kol oif tar techelu, but you may eat only fowl that are not rendered to you spiritually defiled, but not that which is rendered to you rendered to you spiritually defiled. The Torah thus adds an active commandment to a passive commandment. Again, we know that we're not allowed to eat, and there's a mitzvah to eat kosher food. There's a mitzvah. So not only don't you get a person that eats kosher, not only doesn't get an aveda eating non-kosher, he actually gets a mitzvah to eating kosher. And that's why so here, just like we learned the last couple of days, the Torah adds the negative on the positive. Here the Torah adds the positive on the negative. Wants to give you a mitzvah for everything that you do. Similarly, that's why it says Malay mitzvahs kirimin, that Jews are ultimately like full of mitzvahs like a rimin, because how many things they're not doing, and by not doing they're doing, and by doing they're not doing. They have a lot of mitzvahs. Baruch Hashem. Similarly, regarding an animal, it says asher techelu, which you eat, implying, but not a spiritual defilement, and a prohibition derived from a positive statement has the status of active commandment. Thus, one who eats such meat transgresses both the active and the passive. So God forbid, that's what it's, that's the Eibishter. The Torah puts two things on one. If you eat a non-kosher, you're doing two things. You're doing an aveda, God forbid, eating non-kosher, and you're not doing a mitzvah. And by not doing the mitzvah is like doing an aveda. Verse 21, Leiseichu kol nevela. You're not allowed to eat a dead carcass. It's called an avela. You give it to the resident alien. We'll throw it away. A non-Jew can eat a dead animal. And they may eat it. Settle to a non-Jew. You're not allowed to eat it. There are certain things you're not allowed to even give it to a non-Jew, like milk and meat. You're not allowed. You're not allowed, if a person cooks milk and meat together, now it becomes asur ba'ana, becomes prohibited for any kind of pleasure for it. So you can't even sell it. But non-kosher food, non-kosher animals, you could 100% sell it to a guy. And the Torah ends off, Kiyam Kodesh Hashatal Hashem Alekecha, because you are holy to God. Leisavashel Gedi B'chalev Ima, you must not cook a young animal in the milk of his mother. Now she says, Lagera Shebesharecha, a foreign enemy. This is not talking about a ger, a convert, because a convert is like a Jew. He's not allowed to eat non-kosher. This is talking about a resident, a non-Jew that resides in Eretz Yisrael. So we have a resident alien, a ger. It's called in the Gemara terminology a ger toshav. So we have a non-Jew who's allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. He's not allowed to worship idols. He doesn't have to be a Jew to live in Eretz Yisrael. He has to be a ger toshav. He's not allowed to worship. Well, the main thing is not allowed to worship idols. He doesn't have to do Torah mitzvahs, but he's not allowed to worship idols. But he's allowed to eat non-kosher. Ki am kodesh atal Hashem. Sanctify yourself by a voluntary. It's valid by voluntary abstaining yourself from what is permitted to you. It means kadesh atzam mutalach. That's what Rashi explained in the Kedoshim to you. Sanctify yourself, even those things that are allowed. Even though I'm telling you can eat all these animals, etc. Not every time you have to eat it. Don't eat it because of the simple desire. Eat it because you're doing a mitzvah, maybe, but don't just eat it because you have a taiva. Kaddish atzach mutalot. if the things that are permitted, but others treat them as if they're forbidden. For this reason, do not treat them permitted in their presence. So don't say, "Oh, I'm going to eat this in front of the people." People want to be stringent on themselves. Let them don't attack them, and because you should be a little bit. Don't expression by Chassidim that you're not allowed. You're not allowed, and that you're allowed. You don't have to have it either. Not everything that you're allowed you need to have. Rashi says there are 3 times in the Torah this is written. To exclude the 3 different reasons. There are different reasons why it's written 3 times. One that it's also in simple. We know that Rashi mentioned before already that the reason is because it's prohibited to cook, it's prohibited to eat, and it's prohibited to have any pleasure from it. Over here, Rashi gives another Gemara Chulin, which writes, this is stated 3 times in Torah to exclude wild animals, foul, and impure species of animals from the prohibition. So really, cooking chicken and milk is a rabbinical prohibition. It's not a Torah prohibition to cook chicken and milk together. Prohibition of the Torah is cooking milk and meat together. And that completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day, and we are holding in the middle of the 8th letter of the Alter Rebbe. So, however, the following must be understood, since divine illumination must be inevitably result from God's attribute of kindness and its tzedakah. If we say ultimately that God, whatever a person does in this world, is not in comparison to what he receives, and what he receives, not only what he receives, the world receives, and what happens in the upper worlds is all its tzedakah me'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why do we need? Why don't we just go l'chatchila to begin with, the guy's charity? So the question is asked, so why do we need you? What do I need me? What do I need me for? If everything I do and the response is greater than what I do, so why don't we say forget what I do? Just ask God for his kindness and finished. So why do we need Avedis Adam? It's a good question. So why is man's service necessary at all? Let's go and pray to God to give us everything, and we'll sit and do nothing, because it's not even a response to what I've done. And really, that's the problem. There is a problem. The Gemara says a person wants 1 cubit of his own success, then 10 cubits of somebody else's. So if we're telling the person, "Oh, you're giving a penny and you're getting $1 million," so why do I need to give the penny? I mean, let the should give me the $1 million without the penny. Alter Rebbe answers this question by explaining a parallel to the above attributes. There also exists a divine attributes of severity and contraction that exceeds to limit the screening of the diffusion of the godly light. And that's all you have to understand. What are the spheres? The sphere is Chesed, and there's a sphere Lamaila, it's called Gevura, which the Chesed wants to give. And Gevura, sphere Midas HaGevura says no. Midas HaGevura says no. I don't want you to give. I know that you want to give. I know that you want to give everybody. You want to give more than everybody. You just want to give and give and give. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we should contract it. I think we should delimit it. I think we should limit the chesed. There's midas HaGevura. There's the attribute of Gevura. We see in the Gemara, in different terminology, you have the malachim of chesed, malach Refael, and you have malach Gabriel. The one who come before God and say, wait a second. Why are you giving? They're not deserving. Jackson seeks to limit the future of godliness. It is man's practice of. That's why we need man. We need man to overcome that midah, the midas HaGevura. It is man's practice of kindness and tzedakah that ensures that the attribute of severity. That's why you always hear the expression, the sweetening of severity. The sweetening of severity. We want to bring about that the Gevura should be sweetened. It shouldn't be so that strong. it should be a little bit mixed with sweetness, to ensure that the attribute of severity and gevura will not hinder the flow of the divine radiance that is revealed to him during prayer. And that's why we need the Avodas Adam. And it doesn't need much. It doesn't need much to sweeten that gevura. That's what the Eibishter made the system. It is well known that above there's also the attribute of gevura and tzimtzum that serves to contract and conceal the divine light, that it should not be revealed to the Tatainim. Taken Eibishter wants to give chesed, becomes gevura and says, wait a second, let's create a boundary. Let's create gevura. It says let's create some rules and regulations of how we're going to give this chesed. How is then the illumination is nevertheless revealed below? This is what brought down the Zohar. So now everything depends on man. It says even when the Eibishter created the world, he created the trees and the flowers, but he waited for man to pray that it should rain. And now all the trees came out. Everything was there already. But Midas HaGevura said, why? Why should we just give this chesed to the world? What's the kavanah? And the Eibishter said, there's a kavanah that a person's going to pray. A person's going to pray for rain. And now it's going to rain, and the world's going to give out all these things. And that's what happened. So those two in every person in your day-to-day life, when a man conducts himself with kindness, by bestowing life and chesed through acts of charity that sustain the unfortunate, he arouses, it's an equivalent above, so the divine kindness and illumination are bestowed upon him as well. As is brought down, our sages of blessed memory said in the Talmud, with the measure a man meets, it shall be measured to him. When an individual acts in a kindly manner towards his fellow, he will be treated with kindness from above. It appears, however, that the divine response, you're right, the divine response is not in the same measure. We said before, it's not totally measure for measure. My small act of kindness reveals a great act of chesed b'lamayla. It's above and beyond such an individual to appear to deserve, only that the life of the world so to come will be granted to him, corresponding to his bestowal of life in this world. So the appropriate word for man's bestowal of physical life in his world should be surely be a corresponding to the bestowal of the spiritual life in the higher world what to come. But not to be granted the life that comes from the illumination of the actual light of God, to illuminate and to lighten his darkness. Why does he deserve all this? He deserves. He does an act of kindness. He should get a part in the world to come, and he should get something. No question about it. There's a reward. There's a concept that's one of the Rambam writes. Maimonides writes. It's one of the principles of Torah: reward and punishment. So, but wait a second. You deserve everything because of your action. Your action is limited, and your response should be limited. Which is because ultimately his reward is much greater than the world to come's reward. The reward that he receives through his action as well is much greater. How do we know it's much greater? How do we know that the reward that you get, that you do, the action that you do, you receive a much greater reward than even the world to come. The world to come, everybody's hoping for the world to come. As our sages say in Pirkei Avos, it's better one good act of goodness and kindness in this world than all the world, than 1,000 years in the world to come. So we see that one act in this world is much greater. The response and the what is accomplished is far beyond what you're going to receive in the world to come. As explains elsewhere, Barichos at length, the Olam Haba ain't a lazivara, as the Chassidus says, because in the world to come, you're only receiving a ray of God, even the world of Atzilus, even if your neshama will reach the highest worlds, it's ultimately only a ray. It's not the essence of God, it's only a ray of God. So this leaves us in apparent disproportion. The practice of tzedakah before one's prayer should result in a vastly superior revelation of tshuva during prayer. And we're stuck with the question. We all know the answer already, but we're stuck with the question. We will come to the answer, Be'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow. I'm going to keep you in suspense until tomorrow, 8 o'clock in the morning. Have a wonderful... Oh, wait. Today is the 26th day of the month, which is the second part of chapter 119. If you do that part of Tilim, the letter Mem to the end of the chapter, you do the Chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes over here in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The previous Lubavitch Rebbe says, from my father's Sichos, my Rebbe Rashab said in the Chassidic Exodus from Egypt, there's a mitzvah of recounting the Exodus verbally, to tell a Chassidic story, and to sense and apprehend the story in one's deepest innards. One must know that every narrative, every story that you hear, Chassidish Maisa of Tzadikim, one must bring forth, one must know that the narratives are guidance for the living. Every story that you hear must bring forth in the listener a fine character trait, an inner enthusiasm for hidden mitzvah, and should enable the listener to sense the ways of pleasantness of Chassidic teaching. The story should inspire each and every one of us to feel like we're part of the story and what the story means to me. My friends, I wish you a wonderful, beautiful, happy, healthy, gorgeous day. We'll continue in Mitzvah to learn together Chassidus tomorrow, Chitas tomorrow at 8 a.m. Have a wonderful